Hey everyone, Hyper here with my Tearlaments guide, and in this video I'm going to give you a brief history of Tearlaments. What does the Tearlament archetype do? I'm going to give you its pros, cons. We're going to go over each of the individual cards. I will also give you staple cards for your deck. I'll even give you my deck to look at as an example. I'll even give you a list of cards that you should probably consider when you play. We'll also go over how to play and combos. And lastly, we'll go over 5 duels that I think will help in showing the power of Tearlaments. So if you wouldn't mind, please leave a like, share, subscribe. It would really be awesome because, guys, it takes a lot of effort to make these videos and to put them together, and I would really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get going. So Tearlaments comes from the booster Power of the Elements, which was released on August 5th, 2022 for the TCG in North America. With it came 4 new archetypes: Sprite, Tearlaments, Virosif, and Goatee. Unlike its release in the OCG, where Sprite quickly became the meta, in the TCG, the meta seems to be both Tearlaments and Sprite. Now, as for which is greater than the other, depends on who you ask. So I think for all purposes of this video, we're just going to say even. The Tearlaments archetype is centered on milling cards from the player's deck in order to perform fusion summons with the trigger effect activated when a main deck Tearlaments monster is sent to the graveyard. The deck has a notable secondary focus on fusion summoning during the opponent's turn to trigger additional beneficial trigger effects. Every main deck Tearlaments card has a beneficial trigger effect triggered when they are sent to the graveyard by a card effect, such as being milled. The central effect among them is the fusion effect of the 3 Tearlaments mermaid monsters. By triggering this effect on both players' turns and using graveyard materials, the deck can rapidly create fusion boards with minimal on-field material costs. Cards used for the fusion summon are then sent to the bottom of the deck, or the extra deck if it's an extra deck monster that was used for the fusion. In my opinion, I found that I've had more success with a 40 or close to a 40 card deck. The reason being is because we want to have the best chance of milling Tearlament cards in order to take advantage of these effects. Next, I'm going to go over the pros and cons of this deck. So the pros for this archetype is that it works whether it's going first or second. And the reason being is because, number 2, you have cards that allow you to play and set up your board during your opponent's turn, which gets them out of the rhythm, gets them interrupted, and allows you to just cause chaos for your opponent. Number 3, it's almost impossible for this archetype to deck out. I'm going to leave a video link in the top corner that I've made, and you'll see some examples of me decking out an opponent. And after this video, you're going to see why it's going to be pretty much impossible. Number 4, doesn't brick very often, which is really huge because you want to have faith that when you draw your hand, you can play. And I would say probably 90 to 95% of the time, you can play. So the cons of this deck is that it is possible that you could mill nothing, which could stop your plays, and this is especially bad for if it happens when you're trying to do something during your opponent's turn. Number 2, cards that prevent graveyard effects kill this archetype. Gravekeepers, Abyss Dweller, so on and so forth. Number 3, you must keep track of which Tearlament field and graveyard effects have been used. It's a lot to keep track of because, again, you can only use both the field and graveyard effect once per turn. So you can see that it can be even a bigger headache when it's in the mirror. Now we're going to go over each of the cards. We're going to start with Rhinoheart. Rhinoheart is a 4-star water warrior monster with 1500 attack and 2100 defense, and the description reads as, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Tearlaments monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Tearlaments Rhinoheart. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. And if you do, send one Tearlaments card from your hand to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Rhinoheart once per turn. Sharon is a 4-star dark aqua monster with 1800 attack, 1300 defense, and the description reads as follows. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send one monster from your hand to the graveyard. Then send the top 3 of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard, on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Sharon once per turn. Havness is a 3-star dark aqua monster with 1600 attack, 1000 defense, and the description reads as follows. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard, on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Havness once per turn. Merly is a 2-star dark aqua monster with 800 attack and 2000 defense, and the description reads as follows. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard, on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Merly once per turn. Kit Kalos is a 5-star dark aqua fusion monster with 2300 attack, 1200 defense. It is also the searcher and combo enabler of this deck. The description reads as follows. It takes one Tearlaments monster and one aqua monster in order to fusion summon this card. If this card is special summoned, you can take one Tearlaments card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can target one monster you control, special summon one Tearlaments monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, send the target monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Kit Kalos once per turn. Kaleidoheart is a 9-star Dark Fiend fusion monster with 3000 attack and 3000 defense. This is your main offensive boss monster, and the description reads as follows. It takes Tearlaments Rhinoheart and 2 aqua monsters in order to fusion summon this card. It cannot be used as fusion material. If this card is special summoned, or if an aqua monster is sent to your graveyard by card effect while this card is on the field, you can target one card your opponent controls, shuffle it into the deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card, and if you do, send one Tearlaments card from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Kaleidoheart once per turn. Meta Noise is a normal trap card, and the description reads as follows. If you control a Tearlaments monster, or if this is Starfrost, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, change it to a face-down defense position. Then send one Tearlaments monster from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target one Tearlaments monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one Tearlaments Meta Noise effect per turn, and only once that turn. Solic is a continuous trap card, and the description reads as follows. If you control a Tearlaments monster or if this is Starfrost, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, Then send one monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add one Tearlaments monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Tearlaments Solic once per turn. Primeval Planet Perloreno is a field spell, and the description reads as follows. When this card is activated, you can add one Tearlaments monster or one Vista Starfrost from your deck to your hand. Fusion monsters and Tearlaments monsters you control gain 500 attack. If a Tearlaments monster you control or in the graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, except during the damage step, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Primeval Planet Perloreno once per turn. You can only activate one Primeval Planet Perloreno per turn. Now, I know that was a lot of information to take in, but I hope that you were able to see some patterns there when we were reading each of the cards. I put together this chart that will help you kind of visualize how all of these cards work together. So I've broken it down between on-field effects and then the graveyard triggered effects, as well as any special notes that I think were worth paying attention to. I think the other thing that you'll also notice at the very bottom, there's another counter trap card called Crime that I didn't include. And the reason being is because I don't really use it. However, I still think it should be included because if you want to use it, at least you have the information. So, after this, let's move on to what I'm going to call the staple cards that you must have in your deck. Okay, so now that we have gone through the cards, we know what they do, how they kind of vaguely interact with each other, we are seeing the patterns. Now we're going to start with trying to build a deck. Right now, what I'm going to give you are cards that you must have. At least I believe you must have to play in this meta. And again, I think these are the minimum that you can have. So, as we go through these, there'll be some cards that I'll stop on, and we will go through them and explain why I am giving you these cards or the amount that I'm at. For the Tearlaments, we have 1 Rhino Heart, we have 3 Sharon, 3 Marley, and 3 Happiness. You must have 3 King of the Swamps. And the reason for the King of the Swamps is because, number one, you want to try to either, get a polymerization, or you want to be able to use it as another named card on a fusion monster so that you can easily get a fusion monster that you normally wouldn't have access to, such as Thousand Eyes Restrict, and let's say you don't have the Shadal Beast. Well, you can use the King of the Swamp in order to help overcome that. Continue on, you're going to need 1 Shadal Beast, 3 Primeval Planet Perlorenium, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Terraforming, at least 1 Polymerization, and 1 Call by the Grave. And 3 Dark Ruler No More. And I'd say the reason you would need Dark Ruler No More is, you won't do any damage to your opponent, but it's well worth it if they have an established board and it's going to be very hard to break through. Playing this card, negating all their effects, and there's nothing they can do. And then you can just set up your board in peace. I think it's well worth the price. And finally, you're going to want 1 Solic to act as that interruption to play your cards during your opponent's turn. This will help get the things you need going, and you can start causing havoc. Now, on to the extra deck. You'll need 1 Kaleido Heart, 2 Kit Kalos, 1 Winda, 2 Dragon Stapelia. And the reason for the Dragon Stapelias is we want to use its ability to reduce the star level of the affected monster to 1, which messes up any kind of like synchro summoned or thing like that. or exceed summon. And then the other reason is we want to be able to negate the effect of any troublesome monsters that our opponent puts out, so that again we can mess with their combos and prevent them from doing what they want to do. Millennium Eyes Restrict is an absolute must-have and probably my favorite card in this deck. Along with all the other restrict cards, yes, it will take your opponent's card, put it in the back row, and it gains its attack and defense. However, this card can take multiple cards, and also the cards that it takes are negated and all of its effects. So if my opponent activates a monster effect and they have Eldritch the Golden Lord in their graveyard, I can just take Eldritch the Golden Lord and bring it to my back row, and now they can't activate the effects of Eldritch the Golden Lord. So it's a really powerful card that can act as a deterrent and can really prevent your opponent from activating their combos or monster effects in fear of that card being taken. One dark, the Dark Charmer Gloomy, and the only reason for this card is to use when your opponent is either using like an all dark deck or they have dark cards, or if you're in the mirror match and you can use that to grab the dark monster from their graveyard and use it for either your fusions or for exceeds, things like that. And then finally, one Abyss Dweller, again, for the mirror match, easily shuts down Tearlaments and it won't be able to do anything. As well as any other decks that love to be able to go into their graveyard, shuts all of that down. Now that you got the staples, let me show you my deck that I'm currently using online and in locals. And let's just go over the cards I have and the reason why I have them. So this is my branded Tearlaments version that I use. And as the cursor is going to go through each of the cards, just want to go over a few cards that I use and why I do. Number one, the branded package I use just to use up my opponent's Ash Blossom or Effect Veilers and things like that. Also, I want to use its cards, like the Brain Infusion, which easily allows me to get to a Mirror Jade or to a Dragoon. Branded Opening, which protects my fusion monsters from being destroyed. And then also, I have Fusion Deployment, which is great as a combo starter to getting Rhino Heart if I didn't have one in my hand. What you'll also see in the extra deck, a lot of the same cards that I had in the previous slide. Now, I have the Masquerade in my side deck to basically be used if, like, let's say it's the third duel, you're running out of time, and you're definitely not going to have enough time to finish. Okay, very simple. Play Masquerade, and any time your opponent activates an effect, they take damage. And then by that time, they can't get basically anything out that they want, or they'll just skip their turn, and then you could just go immediately to battle step, or you just, you win because of life points. The Backjack is for the deck devastation, so that I can get to it. The deck devastation is mainly there for the Splight. And Sprite is, kind of becoming a nuisance, but I guarantee you using that deck devastation shuts it down. 100%. I guarantee it. It'll shut it down, and you move on to the next game. I have the Twin Twisters as well as the Red Reboot. For either like the back heavy or trap heavy. Like Eldlik, for example, and even now the new Labyrinth that has come out. And then Evenly Match. Evenly Match is just a great card. So, seriously, being able to like banish your opponent's like pretty much their entire field. For Eldlik, that would just kill it. But that's why I run them. Let's now move on to cards that I think you should consider. Now, this is a list of cards that, again, I think you should at least consider. Doesn't mean you have to get them. But, again, build your deck depending on where you play. And that way you can put together a deck that you know will give you the best chance at winning. If you were going to play the pure version of Tearlaments, I would highly suggest that you play Supreme Sea Mare. You can also play the Danger package as well as the Punk package. All of them are good. All of them are viable. It just comes down to a preference of which do you prefer to play. Fairy Tale Snow is another good one to act as an interruption, especially from the graveyard with its effect. You banish 7 cards. A lot of times it's worth it whenever your opponent gets a annoying card out that you need to get a handle on. It's like having a Book of Moon in a monster form, and you can just keep reusing it over and over. Triple Tactics Talent is another good card to consider, especially if either your locals or your opponent is going really heavy into hand traps and it's causing you a lot of headaches. This card will take care of it. Being able to either draw 2, take control of one of your opponent's monsters, or even better, a lot of times you get to look at their hands, see what they have, which that intel is crazy, and then being able to get rid of one of their cards. Again, powerful card, also very much worth considering. Cosmic Cyclone, Galaxy Cyclone, another great back row removal cards, especially Galaxy Cyclone, that it can also be used from the grave as well. So again, both great cards, definitely would consider them. Reinforcement of the Army, also known as Rhoda, another great card for being able to start your combos. What Rhoda allows you to do is to get Reinhardt from the deck. It's just a great searcher card, can't ever go wrong with that. Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, both great cards, especially given the fact that they're counters. Great for, if your opponent plays Dimensional Barrier, or they play Dark Ruler No More, or they get out one of their important monsters. These cards will help with taking care of that and keep those in check. Now let's move on to the extra deck. First up, we've got Garura. Garura is a fantastic fusion monster. Number one, any battle damage that this card inflicts to your opponent becomes double damage. So if you're basically doing direct damage, that's 3,000. Also, if Garura is sent to the graveyard, you will be able to get to draw a card, and there's nothing wrong with being able to get a little card advantage. Next, we got some Link monsters. You don't have to use these, but I like to go into IP Masquerena sometimes, as well as Nightmare Phoenix, and that will allow me then to Link summon Avramax. Avramax being a great boss monster. Can't be targeted by card effects. It protects your other monsters from being attacked because it forces your opponent to attack Avramax. And if it battles a special summoned monster from the extra deck, then Avramax gains the attack of that monster. So it's a great boss monster. I think you should also consider. Beat Cop from the Underworld, another fantastic Link monster. And what she does is, when you tribute one monster, you can place a patrol token on any of your cards. So it could be a spell, it could be a trap, it could be a monster card, doesn't matter. And let's take this for example. Let's say we tribute a card and then we place a patrol token on our field spell. So Beat Cop gets destroyed, and then our opponent plays Harpy Feather Duster. What we can do instead is have the patrol token be destroyed, and it keeps our field spell safe. So it doesn't matter whether Beat Cop is on the field or not. As long as they have a patrol token, you can use this ability. And what's even better is you can use this ability once per turn, so you can have multiple tokens. Again, fantastic. I think you should probably consider it. Bahamut Shark, the reason you would get this is so that you would then be able to get Totally Awesome onto the field. Great cards, but mainly you would use them in the pure variant. And the thing with Totally Awesome is that it's an Omni Negate, and then once it's used, goes to the graveyard, then you can activate its effect, and it gets sent back to the extra deck. So again, you're recycling that card so you can keep using it over and over and over. And finally, we have Zeus, another great boss monster. Detach 2, and you just get to wipe the whole field. I mean, I don't know how much better it gets than that. Great for just, I'm going to wipe the field, now I'm going to set up everything, and I'm going to OTK. And now let's move on to the side deck. Nibiru, great card. Really great at interrupting combo-heavy decks. After 5 summons, whether it be normal, special, doesn't matter. Basically just get to wipe your opponent's entire board, and then you get special summon Nibiru. Next up, we've got the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode. Great for being able to tribute 3 of your opponent's monsters, and then at the end phase, it shifts owners. Even though it can attack, I think what makes it very useful is it also can't be attacked, and it can't be targeted by card effects. So it makes it a really, really good defensive card. Also, I mean, even if you want to put in the Winged Dragon of Raw package in, this would help with that. And next, we have Spooky Dogwood. Great card for siding in when it's third duel. Not a lot of time. Really only time for 1 turn. And your opponent's trying to quickly get into the battle phase, and then they decide to activate a card effect which allows them to special summon a monster. You can activate Spooky Dogwood, and you then gain the attack of every monster that your opponent special summons. And so then you can just win by life points. So it's a niche card, but it's a fantastic strategy. I would also say the same thing with Lava Golem. Lava Golem being one of those cards where, sort of like a Kaiju, but every standby phase, your opponent takes 1,000 damage. So same application really as Spooky Dogwood, but instead of you gaining life points, your opponent loses life points. And Lightning Storm, great card for getting rid of back row, also getting rid of your opponent's attack position monsters. Great way of just help you getting through your opponent's traps or easing up the pressure that your opponent's created with their board. And we also got Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Works in the same way as Deck Devastation Virus, where you tribute a dark monster up to a certain attack. But Epidemic Virus focuses on spells and traps. And so for 3 of your opponent's turns, you can say, when you activate this card, traps. Any trap your opponent controls, draws, or is in their hand for 3 of their turns gets destroyed. And it's a great way of shutting down some of your opponent's strategies or cards that you don't want your opponent to use. So if you know they've got like Dark Ruler No More, then you can play this card, say spells, and then you don't have to worry about Dark Ruler No More. So just something to consider. And then Trap Trick, great card for increasing the chances of getting to one of your traps, whether it would be one of your Tearlaments traps, or it would be Eradicator, or Deck Devastation, or evenly matched. It's a good card to consider, helping with, again, keeping some of the consistency, as well as being able to set up some traps. Dimensional Barrier is a great trap card, and once activated, you get to declare one monster type that would be in the extra deck. So whether it would be Fusion, Exceeds, Synchro, Pendulum, pretty much any of those except for Link. And then for 2 turns, both players cannot special summon that declared type. So let's say you're playing your Tearlaments deck, you set up all the boss monsters you can, and you just load up your board with all the cards you can. Then, on your opponent's turn, activate Dimensional Barrier, and let's just say they're playing Tearlaments as well, and then you activate Dimensional Barrier, call Fusion. They can't special summon a Fusion monster, but hey, you've got your Fusion monsters. So, you're got a whole board full of monsters, and they can't even get theirs. Great strategy. Really fun when you pull it off. And then lastly, we've got Crime. I know that we didn't really go over it in the section where we went over the cards, but it also sort of acts like a Solemn Judgment, although it's got a few more strings attached to it, but also being able to activate the graveyard effect that allows you to get a banished card. That can also be pretty powerful. But again, up to you whether or not you want to do that. As of recording this video, I discovered another card that I think that you should also consider, Sprite Elf. Really fantastic card in that you can grab a Link 2 or level 2 monster that is in your graveyard, and you can special summon it, or if your opponent has a Link 2 level 2 monster, you can also take control of it and use its effects. So let's say, for example, your opponent has a Merly on their field. You can activate Sprite Elf either during your turn or their turn, take control of it. However, you need to be careful because, with Merly, if Merly gets sent to the graveyard by card effect, then that card, they're going to be able to activate Merly's graveyard effect. So, have to be careful. Make sure that whatever card it is that you take from your opponent, make sure it doesn't have a graveyard effect. If it does, try to find a way around it. So, in case it was like Merly, I would, search summon another Merly, and then Exceed summon it into Totally Awesome. That way, if it gets destroyed and it gets sent to the grave, nothing happens. And now that we have gone through the cards, staples, cards that you probably should consider, and all that, let's now go to how to actually play Tearlaments and the combos that you're going to need to be successful. In this section, we're just going to go over basic combos, basic how-tos on how to use Tearlaments, and we can use all those combos in our games in different situations. So the first combo we're going to go with is how to summon Reinhardt or Kaleidoheart. So first things first, we have a Reinhardt, or however you can get Reinhardt to the field. Use his ability. We're going to send Havness to the grave. And so we're going to special summon Kaleidoheart by using the Havness, the Kaleidoheart, and it could be any other one, but we're going to just use Merly. And then we're going to summon Kaleidoheart in defense position because, again, if our opponent has like a Raigeki or something like that, we want to keep him safe. So, in this one, we're going to summon Kikalos, same as before, Reinhardt, send Havnus. We're going to get our Kit Kalos, send them to the deck. Now, we're going to use Kit Kalos' effect this time to get a trap. And the reason we want to get the trap is we want to have follow-up for next turn. Again, we don't want to put too much out because, again, we want to have a trap ready so that we can interrupt our opponent and we can kind of mess with them to come out ahead. In this example, we're going to summon Kit Kalos, but we're going to do it in a different way, showing you using instant fusion, which is just, it's a quicker way of getting Kit Kalos out. But in this case, we're going to show you the power of being able to mill. So let's get instant fusion, and then we'll summon the Kit Kalos. With the Kit Kalos, we're going to, we could have added anything, but mostly you want to go for the Merly. So we activate Kit Kalos, the second effect, and we're going to put Merly onto the field, send Kit Kalos to the grave. And now we're going to use Kit Kalos as a chain 1 and then Merly as chain 2. This is going to allow us to mill 8 cards. And reason being is because you can have a good chance of getting multiple Tearlament cards in order to use that to get a lot of material out onto the field. In this example, we're going to show how to special summon a Exceeds monster. So, first things first, we're going to special summon a Sharon, and by that, it'll allow us to put her on the field, and then we have to send a Tearlaments card or a monster card to the grave. We're not going to, we can activate the effect. We don't have to, but, yeah, let's just do it. Let's get a Kaleido Heart, which, again, this is a great way of showcasing when you have the cards, you can put some extra stuff out there that can be helpful. Okay, that works. Let's get those into the deck. Special summon the Kaleido Heart. Now, we're just going to normal summon the Sharon. And so now that we have them, let's go. There it is. Time Thief. Now, the great thing about Time Thief is that if it has a monster attached to it, especially Tearlaments, and you select that monster to activate its effect, which again, you can do during your opponent's turn, it's a great way of getting that Tearlaments to the grave by card effect so that, again, you can then fusion summon on your opponent's turn. And again, just another way of causing havoc. And again, you could just keep building up material for that Zeus. So, in this last example, what we're going to do is we're going to actually summon Exceed summon a Totally Awesome. And, it doesn't have to be a Totally Awesome, but it's, again, just to show you that you can summon other things besides a 4-star. You can do a 2-star, 3-star, and you have the ability to do it. So, again, we're going to use that instant fusion to quickly get Kit Kalos. We're going to send a Merly to the graveyard. We're going to normal summon the Merly from our hand. And then we're going to activate Kit Kalos' effect in order to get the other Merly from the graveyard onto the field. So, send the Kit Kalos. No, let's not activate the effect. Let's just get it done. All right, so we're going to now summon Totally Awesome. And there you go. Again, it's easy to do, and it's going to help you out in more ways than one. So now we're going to look at some duels, and we're going to, again, use those combos that we saw earlier in order to apply them in our matches. So in this one, my opponent goes first, and as you can see, we have a mirror match, which, again, that's fine. Now in this version that I was using, again, this is when I was testing, I decided I wanted to use Dragoon because I was just trying to figure it out. and I happened to get the physical card, so I was like, oh, I want to see how I can make it work. So one thing I want you to realize is that you need to keep track of what your opponent has used and what is in their hand. That's going to be helpful, especially for when you're like, okay, if they're going to use a Tearlaments card, okay, what do they have in the graveyard? What can they use? What can they not use? Those are very key details that you need to keep track of as well as your own. So now we're going to get into what we want to do. So we're going to do share and play in order to get the monsters out, in order to get our Mirror Jade. We want that Mirror Jade to kind of act as a disruption. And we also want to be able to get our polymerization because I'm trying to plan for my follow-up. What I'm wanting to do is get to my Guardian Chimera. I'm pretty confident what he's wanting to try to do, because of what I think he wants to do. He wants to try to load it up, which again is what he's trying to do. And now he's going to use a pretty cool application of Kit Kalos' effect, where he's going to send the Merly in order to put out the Reinhardt, so he can use both the Reinhardt's effect and the Merly's effect, which I think is a really smart play. So now he's going to be attacking into me. It ain't looking good. Now he's going to basically put me into the red. So, ain't looking good. Now he's got a Zeus. Okay, so, as I said, it's not looking... Oh, hey, there you go. Got a Dark Ruler no more. Again, this is the power of Dark Ruler. I'm okay with not doing any damage, but you can't do anything. But I can now set up my board, do the Reinhardt, get the Kit Kalos out onto the field. Now I have everything to do that Guardian Chimera, which is what I wanted to do. So, we're going to draw one, destroy two. We're going to get Lubellion in order to get Dragoon. And then we're also going to get Predaplant. And it's at this point, there's nothing he can do. Nothing. And I think he should surrender. Yeah, he surrenders. Yeah, there's really nothing he can do. All right, in this one, I go first. And I'm going to start with my field spell. That way I can get my Reinhardt. We're going to normal summon the Reinhardt. That way we can send Havness to the grave. Fortunately, we're going to get stopped by DD Crow upon activation of Havness' graveyard effect. And we're just going to set. It's unfortunate, but we still got the plays in order to get out Winda. Because, again, we have that Shadal Beast. So we're going to use Solek to send Reinhardt, use Reinhardt's effect to get Reinhardt back on. We're going to send Havness to the grave in order to send Sharon to the grave. And now we get our Winda. We can use our field spell in order to get rid of his monster. And we have our Kit Kalos now onto the field. And now it's GG. Because machines are a very combo-heavy deck. There's nothing he can do. He doesn't have any follow-up. He doesn't really have any other kind of disruptions that can stop Winda. So it's GG. So I was gonna try to build up my board again, and he just surrenders. All right, and for this match, it looks like my hand is it's an okay hand. We'll just normal summon Reinhardt, and well, we get Ash Blossom, so we'll just use Branded Opening, send Havness, and this way now we'll get to use Havness' effect. So that way we can summon the Kit Kalos. We use its effect, but we'll get Ogred, so we'll use Branded to protect it. So we don't really have much, so let's just hope we get lucky. We'll use Kit Kalos effect to send Merly from the hand. We mill 8, and we got lucky because we got a Sharon, and we also got the Squamata and Beast. So now we can get the Winda, and we can also draw a card from Shadal Beast. So
we have a plan, even though we've been interrupted twice. But unfortunately, we got impermed. But we now also know our opponent is playing mathematics. So it's always helpful to know, in a nutshell, what it is each deck is wanting to try to do. Because knowing that is also going to help you with knowing how to set up your board to either drive them into your trap or to be able to counter it is what they want to do. So it's okay that we didn't set up an all-powerful full negation board. It's okay. But we got to think about our counterpunch. We've always got to be thinking about, okay, how can I counter a punch my opponent? And also sometimes, you know what, you just get lucky and your opponent doesn't know that much about Tearlaments. So in this case, he uses access code to send Merly. I use Merly's effect to get Kick Kalos. He's going to try to destroy Wenda, so I'm going to use my other branded opening. He's going to use the effect again on Kick Kalos. And now I have the cards I need to get my Kaleido Heart. I'm going to use Kaleido Heart, send access code, and it's all over. So again, it's okay when it doesn't seem like it's going your way. Try to prepare for that counter punch. Preparing for that counter punch is going to allow you to get back into this game. All right. So for this match, it looks like we got a pretty good hand. It's not bad. Let's go ahead. We're going to send King of the Swamp to the grave so we can get our polymerization. Because I'm now thinking, okay, I want to somehow get Guardian Chimera on my follow-up turn. But let's go ahead. We're going to use Velion to get the Predaplant. We got our Field Spell, so now we got Reinhardt. With that, we can normal summon Reinhardt, send Havness to the graveyard to be able to use Havness effect. And then we can put out our El Shadal Wenda. So we're in a pretty good position. And then we realize we're going against Eldritch, which now it's like I'm realizing Wenda was a pretty bad choice, and also so was Predaplant. Both of them were pretty bad choices. So, you know, my original plan failed, but I need to be able to adapt to my situation. Tearlaments can go the distance. It is also extremely versatile. So, just because your plan failed doesn't mean all hope is lost. So, we drew, we got another field spell. We're going to play the field spell. That way we can get another Reinhardt. Now we can start making some plays. So, I'm going to use the polymerization. Now, I'm going to pause it here because there's a cool thing with polymerization, even super poly as well, with Tearlaments. If Tearlaments cards are used in the polymerization, they get sent to the graveyard because they're the material. However, you also, and this is the key, you also get to use the graveyard effects. And that's huge. So, we'll continue. So we're going to use Jester, Wenda, and Reinhardt to get the Guardian Chimera. Our opponent's trying to stop it with Conquistador. It doesn't work. We get our Reinhardt back onto the field. And then we are able to get our Merly into the grave. That way we can now use its effect to get Millenniumized Restrict. Again, to keep our opponent in check. And to deter him from trying to make any kind of plays that he normally would. So, I'm going after those Golden Lords. And I think the other thing that kind of helps is my opponent just didn't read, which honestly I think is on par for Yu-Gi-Oh players. So he activates Golden Lord. I take his Golden Lord. And so he brings the Golden Lord out, but it's negated. So we're in a good spot. It's not all bad. We're slowly adapting. We're slowly getting our board set up the way we need to take out Golden Lord. So we lost our Restrict. We got the Aliber out. That way we can get the Time Thief. Now I'm going to be able to try to take the top card of my opponent's deck during the standby. And unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to because of the skill drain, but I can use Time Thief again in order to banish it. That way it'll come back in the end phase. And so again, there's really not much here my opponent's going to be able to do. So we lose the Guardian Chimera. Again, not a big deal. We're going to get that Aliber back out. And again, not a big deal. Get to the end phase, we're going to get that Time Thief back. So we're going to use Time Thief's ability to get the top card from our opponent's deck, but he's going to Conquistador it. That way he gets rid of it. We're going to use Branded Opening, send Havness. And with that, we're going to be able to use Havness's ability from the grave once he does all of his things. Activate it. We're going to special summon Kit Kalos. With that, we're going to use Solak to send Kit Kalos back. We mill a Merly. And then we also were able to get a Reinhardt. So that way, we can summon our Kaleido Heart. We're going to use Dragon to send back one of their boss monsters. And now we're now getting into a much better position here. We're messing with our opponent, but we didn't attack because we didn't really want to give our opponent access to his trap cards and their effects during the end phase. So again, we're just trying to create some chaos. We're sending back his cards. Now we've got a Masquerade out. Now the plan is in motion. We're going to be able to basically let our opponent burn himself. Although I think he made a mistake by not going for the Masquerade. He's going to try to use Dogmatica, but I'm going to use Branded Opening to protect. So the writing's now on the wall. There's not much more he can really do. We've got a Reinhardt in the play because, again, we're recycling our cards. We're going the distance. We're going to normal summon Reinhardt, send Havness to the graveyard. With that, we're allowed to activate Kaleido Heart's effect, and then Havness's effect. We're going to get another Masquerade onto the field, and at that, it's GG's. There's nothing more he could have done. At that point, he's going to be losing 1,200 life per effect activated. And again, it's GG's. Now, for this one, yes, I know it's against a bot, but purpose for this is just to show you that with a few cards, you can get a massive board. So, we normal summon Reinhardt, send Havness. In order to get Kit Kalos, we're going to use Kit Kalos' ability to send Merly from her hand, send Kit Kalos to the grave, use their effects to mill 8. We were able to get Merly, which we were going to get a Masquerade. We're going to use Polarization to get another Masquerade. We use Dogmatica to get Dogmatica. Onto the field, use Foolish Burial. That way we can get another Tearlaments into the grave in order to get the Predaplant onto the field. So we got 2 Negators and 2 Burners. And obviously it's a stupid bot, so it's going to pretty much kill itself. But I can negate twice. Once with the Predaplant and the other with the Dramaturge. Like I say, there you go. See? Try to use its link with the Cerberus, but I'm like, no. Not going to happen. And now we're just going to swing the game. So, again, knowing how my opponent wants to play is going to allow me to adapt my strategy to win. And it's also going to allow me to counter it in the most effective way. Because again, you have the cards to do it. Make use of them. So that's going to come to the end of the guide. Again, please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I greatly appreciate it. And if you have any comments, leave them down below. I really would like to hear from you all. I'm always wanting to get better. And if you all really, really enjoy this, maybe I'll make another one. Leave a comment down below which one you would like me to do next. Thanks very much. Y'all have a great day.